Good morning, everybody. September 13th, 2018, 6:54 a.m. All right, and we are in the final hours of landfall of Hurricane Florence. We are currently in Category 2 status. We're at 110 mile an hour sustained winds. That's basically 1 mile an hour away from being a low-grade Category 3. Still, they are calling this storm a Category 5 flood storm. Because of the fact that it is moving so slow and carrying so much water. Now, the water is going to be the worst of the situation, as they expect about 100 to 110 mile an hour winds at landfall. That'll probably extend about 50 miles out from the center eye wall. 132 mile an hour gusts. That's within Category 4 range. Now, the main issue right now is going to be the storm surge and the flooding. That's the amount of rain that this storm is bringing. And we're watching here how those outer bands are basically covering the entire east coast of North Carolina. South Carolina is beginning to get some of those stronger bands. I was watching some webcams before. The wave heights are getting very high in this area, and we are still a few hundred miles off the coast. Again, this will more than likely hit around Friday, early morning Friday, basically Thursday night into Friday is going to be when this thing is actually hitting specific areas. It looks more like Carolina Beach, Southport, Oak Island is in there, Winnebago. And then it's going to start hooking down towards the south, like Sunset Beach, North Myrtle, and then Myrtle Beach. Those are where those big floodwaters are going to be, and they're not joking around with these floodwaters, guys. They're calling it a CAT5 as far as flood potential. 30 plus inches of rain. I have a few charts here that have actually they've been in this color here, which is above 20 inches of rain they're expecting. That's not counting the storm surge. So we got to take into consideration we have an 8 to 10 foot storm surge expected with this storm. And on top of that, because of the delay, once it actually gets to those areas of Carolina Beach and Southport where it looks like it's heading right now, the eye wall at least, it's going to kind of sit there and recycle itself and then dip down a little bit to the south. Now we're going to look at the models again real quick to verify the direction, but basically it's all those places I named, like Carolina Beach and Southport, in Oak Island, and then as you get more south, we get into Charleston areas. Those coastal areas are going to see a lot of inlet flooding, and a lot of the rivers that are going inland are going to be pretty high. Now, we saw some that were over 9 feet yesterday. So this water is going to carry in, and again, I tried to explain in a few videos, with this counterclockwise spin, you got to understand the water is being pulled into one area, and then in some area, and in some cases, will be pulled away from the coast. But still, dealing with these 100 plus mile an hour winds, more than likely Category 2, because it's at that border of 110 and 111, it technically could land as a Category 3, more than likely Category 2 at this point. So, which is a good thing. That is a positive note compared to the Category 4 that we were expecting, but it's the flooding and the fact that mainstream news is actually calling this a Category 5 storm as far as rainfall and storm surge. You can see right here, Category 5 flood threat day 1 today. It's already beginning. We're looking at up to 40 inches of rain, anywhere from basically Hatters down into Wilmington. So if we take a look at Google Earth here, we can see Wilmington right here, and then Hatters is up in this area down here. It looks like the eye of the storm wants to go right over this area, and then as we zoom in here, we could see which different beaches and towns are in this area. It wants to come in right around here and just kind of sit, and that's what's going to be the issue for all these areas here, which have already been evacuated. Very smart move at this point, especially with the flooding. There's a lot of low-lying areas here, a lot of rivers and lakes that are going to be way over flood. We're talking 10, 11 feet over capacity. Diamond Shoals area, this will be hit by bands, absolutely, as the storm is expected to come a little south rather than north, and then eventually it's going to get in more to the U.S. and then hook up to the northeast. This water vapor chart here helps give you an idea of the amount of moisture in this storm. When you see those, just the bright whites and those exploding clouds, that is very, very dense moisture. And once this thing gets to this area, that's going to be the issue, guys. It's going to slow down. It's going to kind of wibble and wobble back and forth, and then kind of move down into a southern direction, and then make its way in towards the central areas of North and South Carolina, and then up into the Northeast. So the Northeast may be seeing a rain threat from this as another storm passes over top. So this could be leading to a flood situation in the Northeast as well. But let's wait for at least Florence to make its landfall and see what kind of things we're going to be dealing with. And as far as the Atlantic Ocean goes, it's like looking at a bunch of alphabet soup. It's like they're just everywhere. Another disturbance 2, 20% chance over 5 days. We still have our Gulf storm to worry about, 60% chance formation over 5 days. And we can see our time frame here. I know I mentioned this already, but the time frame, you can see that 2 a.m. Friday, early morning, this thing is going to be right off the coast. And if we look really quick at some tropical tidbits models, we can get an idea of exactly where this is going to be. The European model has been most accurate so far. You could see it almost comes up and then wants to go right into a western movement, right into that area we just spoke about by Carolina Beach and Southport. So that's what we're seeing right now, and then it wants to ride down. If the eye wall can somehow make its way back out of the water, we could see a minor re-strengthening of this storm as it heads south and covers South Carolina, and then that's going to put the what would that be? The mid-east area of Georgia in line for a lot of rain and wind. More wind than rain, because if you notice, this is the pull-out part of the hurricane as it recycles itself and turns counterclockwise, pulling more rain into the upper east parts of South Carolina and the border of North Carolina. So as of right now, it's where we're expecting to see the storm go, and then it makes that dramatic hook into the U.S. And as we said before, then we could be dealing with the west sides of North Carolina and Virginia, and then West Virginia, and then up into the East Coast as it meets another low. Now we'll quickly check out the GFS. We have to back up here, and we'll see exactly what we're going to deal with. A little bit more of a north landfall above the areas I called for Carolina Beach and Southport. So a little bit above this inlet here. Right around this area. So we would be seeing a landfall around Myrtle Grove or Wrightsville Beach, things of that nature, Highway 40, 132, and then hook down and possibly enter the water again by Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach. So still a little bit of discrepancy in these models, which is still very interesting to me because this storm is so close and they just cannot seem to agree on exactly where this storm's going to go. But the main idea is that it's going to hook a little south and then move its way into basically the middle area of the eastern states and then up excuse me, into the northeast. Now let's finally check out the Canadian and line ourselves up here and see where their landfall shows. Basically the same as the Europeans, right by Carolina Beach, Southport, Oak Island, and then down into Winnebago. As it makes that southern dip once again. Actually, the Canadian model shows this thing actually staying inland and moving more quickly into the western areas of North Carolina and then Virginia. So a lot of different things and possibilities to look out for, guys, as we wait for this storm to arrive. Those outer bands are doing their thing. The wave heights are getting very big. We're going to expect that to just increase throughout the day and into the night tonight. They're expecting from 2016 Hurricane Matthew and then 1999 Hurricane Floyd caused some major flooding in these areas. They're expecting this to possibly break those records that were set in those years. When you're dealing with 40 inches of rain plus a 9 to 10 foot storm surge, that is nothing to mess with. So we're going to be getting some numbers shortly as the bands are already causing the flooding. So though they're going to start right before this thing hits land. We could see 105 miles an hour. This chart is showing here by time it hits landfall just before Wilmington, just above that area of Carolina Beach. And as far as what they have to say, again, hurricane category 5 flood threat. So even though the storm has weakened a bit, we're still dealing with the stalling of the storm and the recycling of the water. That's going to be the biggest issue, even though 110 mile an hour winds are nothing, they're nothing weak. Let's just say that. Tropical cyclones and the remnants are notoriously heavy rainfall producers. They're comparing this to Harvey in a way. I don't know if we're going to see as much flooding as we did with Harvey, but they're stressing the fact that this storm is going to sit for a little while. So target areas are Wilmington and then down south into Charleston. Anywhere in between there are going to be our basically our ground zero zone. So, all right, guys, the repeat time. Got to get to work. That is the update for right now. Everyone, please stay safe. The storm is getting closer and closer. Conditions are deteriorating, and we are expecting a landfall by early Friday morning, possibly very late into Thursday night tonight. All right, guys, have a great morning. We'll do an update this afternoon and check in on everybody. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.